What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next, we are going to be going over the top sales that I saw last week in the weekly Heritage Comic Auction. Some big surprises, some deals, some records, even. Let's check these out. All right, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. So we got a bunch of books to talk about this week. I picked out 16 different books. Most of these are the top sales books from this auction. These are the big books, the cool ones to see come up for sale. Some of them are big Silver Age keys. We've got Golden Age books. We've got Bronze Age books. We've got something from all those different ages. Let's start checking these books out. So if you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, we've got the weekly Heritage Comic Auction. This is an auction that Heritage puts on every week where they do Golden Age comics on Sunday, Silver Age on Monday, and Bronze through Modern on Tuesday. These auctions are not small. I mean, you can see here up in the top corner here, this is the total auction sales just for this week. This was $696,728. That's actually a little bit on the higher end from what I normally see. So that means that there were maybe a few bigger books this week than usual. Usually I see it in the $500,000 to $600,000 range. Pushing up near $700,000 is much less common. But what I've got here is the recap from that auction. And I like to organize it from most expensive down to least expensive and usually take a look at those top sales. Now, I did make a video earlier this week going over the Little Archie bound volumes because that was one of the most surprising sales that I saw that was part of these top sales. But I've got 16 books here we're going to talk about. We're going to go through these, check these books out. Some of them, not something you see every day. And we'll see how these books compared to my estimates, if they were positive surprises, negative surprises, all that kind of stuff. So the first one right here is 4-color 386. This is considered Uncle Scrooge #1. First cover appearance of Uncle Scrooge. This is an 8.5. This is a nice grade for this book. It's a book from 1952. I had this book going for $1,800. Its prior record was $3,120, but we had been seeing prices trend down with this book. It's like it had been coming up for sale quite a bit. So prices seem to have been coming down. So I priced it accordingly and it went for $3,240. So not only a big sale, beat my estimate by 80%, but also a new record in grade for this book. So a very impressive sale for this one to start off the books that we are talking about here. And part of the reason I like to point some of these out is that I think a lot of people think that everything is going down in the comic market all the time right now. And that's just not the case. There are still books out there that are setting records. They are most often in the golden age, though. So that's just something to be aware of the different eras and the strengths and all that kind of stuff. But 8.5, 4-color 386, $3,240, a new record. All right, now the next one, we're going to jump all the way up to the Bronze Age. We're going to take a look at Star Wars #1, 9.8, sold for $4,320. Another really solid sale for this book, going over $4,000. I had it going for $3,800, so beat my estimate by 14%. It had a crazy record during the comic boom. It had a record sale of $9,600, which is just wild. I mean, it had no business selling at that type of price. But still, like, this is a very, very strong sale for this book. This is a good looking copy. Colors are really nice on this one. But this is a book that, again, has been trending down. If we go to GPA, which is one of the tools that I use to price out comic books, I use a combination usually of GPA and Go Collect right now. And we take a look at the prices for a 9.8. We can see that the low sale this year already was $2,660. So this is a book that has sold as low as $2,660. That was pretty low, but it had been consistently below $4,000 since pretty early this year. It had one sale in January for $4,440, another sale at the very first day of January for $4,400. But this is the highest sale we've had in a while, and you can see kind of the trends for this book. Like, this was a book that just went nuts during the comic boom. It is still on this trend down, though. I would be at this point very cautious with this book. I would be very concerned that this downtrend is going to continue. So just something to consider, that if you own this book, at least in a 9.8, that's the grade I'm talking about here, I would not be a holder of this book right now. I would be a seller of this book. All right, now let's check out the next book here. This was, it's funny. Another Uncle Scrooge book. I wasn't really expecting to talk about two of these, but this one was just so crazy. I actually talked about this, I believe, during my live stream that I did during this auction. This is Uncle Scrooge #6. Nothing really notable about this other than being a Carl Barks issue. An 8.0, it is the top of census. I mean, so there's 3 and 8.0, none higher, but $4,320. I had this going for $1,100. Its prior record, and we can take a look at that because I'm sure it was quite a few years ago, was $370. So if we take a look at Uncle Scrooge #6, 1954, and then we look at, an 8.0. Yeah, I mean, it sold in 2006, so 18 years ago for $370, but still, I mean, look at this, a 7.5 just last November for $960, a 7.0 for $700. I mean, this is what top of census can do, but I still thought this was just a wild number for this book, especially because an 8.0 is a very risky top of census. When you're paying a premium for top of census books and it's an 8.0, the likelihood of there being an 8.5, 9, 9.2, 9.4, something like that out there is very, very high. And so that premium that you paid could be just evaporated overnight when somebody sends in a book that's a nicer condition than this one. So just something to be very aware of with that. But man, this sale was probably the biggest surprise, even more so than that little Archie one. This was 293% above my estimate. I mean, I had to go in for $1,100. I mean, on the top end, I would have thought maybe like 1,500, like 1,500, maybe, just because we had a 7.5 go for 960 as the top of census. You get a little bit of a premium for that, but wow, 4,320. I mean, in all honesty, like, I would not have paid that. I think that was a big, big overpay for this book, especially because of the risk that is out there that there could be many higher grade copies of this book. But all right, let's check out the next one here. This was one that I can't remember if I bid. Yep, I did bid on this one. Yeah, so Seven Seas #6. I bid 4,200. So you can see I was the underbidder because the winning bid was $4,320. So I was close. I considered throwing in another bid to keep going after it, but I just decided not to. This is one of the big Matt Baker books. The Seven Seas run specifically, issues 4 through 6, have covers done by Matt Baker. Now, I had this one going for 5,100, went 15% below my estimate. It was estimated as a 5.0. I talked about this again during the live stream. I think it would probably get a 5.0. I mean, it's a decent looking copy. It's got some spine wear. That was one of my little concerns. I thought maybe it would be like a 4.5. Just there's a little more spine wear than I like to see in a 5.0, but otherwise it's a pretty nice looking book. These books are not easy to come across in any type of decent condition. They are usually pretty rough. And so I still think that this was a pretty good buy. And if we take a look at this book, Seven Seas #6, you can see what the prices are on this type of book for Matt Baker. And Matt Baker stuff is super hot right now. He is probably the hottest golden age cover artist right now. You can see a 3.5 went for 3,840. There was this crazy 2.0 sale for 7,200. That was a fluke outlier. You're not going to hit that type of number again. I had a, like, what was it, a 1.8, and I ended up selling for quite a bit less than that. But I mean, that means, like, if this was a 4.5, that's why I was thinking 5,000, maybe 5,500 graded. And if it was a 5.0, maybe even a little better. But it's just one where I wasn't willing to take any additional risk on this book. But I don't think that this was a bad pickup. I think this was a pretty good deal, especially given all the heat around Matt Baker right now. All right, now jump into the Silver Age. Not one you usually see in this grade. Now, there are 2 9.9s out there that exist for this book. So there are some very high grade copies of Captain America #100, but this is a 9.6. So it went for $5,040. I had it going for 4,500, beat my estimate by 12%. not a record. The record in grade was $6,000. So this was just a pretty strong performing book. Beat my estimate, not a record. Really nice looking copy. We can take a close look at this. I know everybody likes to kind of pick apart the high grade silver and gold and Bronze Age books, but we've got a little wear up in that corner up there. Spine is remarkably nice for this one. Now it is difficult to see flaws on the white, but this is a very, very nice looking book so far. We'll keep checking. These are all manufacturing, like cutting marks on the book. So that's not anything, that's just on the pages. But let's see, anything in the top corner? I mean, not really, like kind of a soft corner. I mean, I'd say this is a very solid 9.6. I don't think there's anything you can really complain about with this book. I mean, you've got like a soft corner, really almost like nothing to write home about on the spine, nothing really on the edges. Really good looking 9.6 for Captain America number 100. All right. Now, this is another one. You do not see this type of grade pop up very often for this book. It is surprisingly hard to get high grade copies of Star Trek number 1. 1967, so relatively late Silver Age, but they just are not out there. I mean, if we take a look at the census on this one, 1,007 universals, 198, 596s, 1394s, and 1492s. This is very different from what you see with late Silver Age with a lot of other Silver Age books. This book is just incredibly difficult in grade, and so it goes for a pretty big premium. It really starts to jump in those higher grades. However, this was a low sale, but it's tough to call because this book had spiked so much during the comic boom. This is one where its record was $10,200. I had it going for $7,000, went for $5,280, which was 25% below my estimate. But I'm also not shocked about that sale. And I'll show you why. And like I said, it's really just because of the big spikes that this book experienced. So if we go down here and take a look at a 9.2, you can see up until 2019, 2020, this book was going for $3,000. I mean, a few years before that, $1,800. And then you had the comic boom. You had this huge spike where it basically tripled in 2021. So the question is, how fast is it going to correct back down to that kind of that normal trend line? Because that's what we've been seeing with a lot of books now. We've been seeing that a lot of them are correcting back down to their trend lines that they were following prior to the comic boom. And usually you don't see these big gaps down all at once. It usually takes a little bit, but this one gapped down pretty quick. I mean, so that's why I was thinking 7,000 just because I thought it would take a little longer to correct. But as you can see, I mean, it's still pretty high. I wouldn't be surprised then if the next sale went for like 4,500 or 4,200. I do still think there's a lot of risk in this book, even at this price point, even at half basically of what it went for during the comic boom. But that's just my opinion on it. I think that this book could still continue to drop quite a bit. All right. Now this next one, again, not one you see very often, especially not in these weekly auctions. This is a cool one to see. I do have a copy for sale, so not trying to like pump this book or anything like that. But we've got Weird Mysteries number 5. This is a Bernard Bailey cover. You can see here, Bernard Bailey cover. He is known for doing some of the creepiest, craziest Golden Age pre-code horror covers. I had this one going for $3,500. Its record was $4,080. Part of the reason I thought it was going to go low is that this was a brittle page book. And I've just noticed on Heritage, very often brittle page books get hammered. They just do very poorly on Heritage. It seems like people are a lot pickier about page quality on this auction site than on other auction sites. And it's just whoever the people are that are bidding there. Also, take a look down at the bottom corner here. You can tell like inside the slab, this piece had at some point detached. I can almost guarantee it was attached at one point because CGC will not put loose pieces inside the slab. So something happened where when it shifted around or whatever, or it was just barely holding on and this piece fell off. And so that's a pretty big visual deterrent. Like that's something where I would almost want to get that re-slabbed right away. And hopefully they keep the same grade. They don't penalize you too much for that, just because I don't like seeing that piece hanging off down there. So for all those reasons, I thought this was going to go lower and it went big. I mean, 5,760 record in grade, 65% over my estimate. So yeah, really, really strong sale for this book. There are nice colors on this one. That's something I have often noticed and I've commented on before is that a lot of times with brittle page books, you actually see very nice colors on those books. And it's not always that brittle means that the whole book is brittle. It can mean certain parts, but you can see like up here, like there must be some brittleness in the corners. I mean, maybe along the spine, you can see some flecking of the paper there, but still, like it's a good looking book. Like this is a very nice presenting 2.0. The max grade you can get with brittle pages is a 3.5, so just something to be aware of. But yeah, big number for Weird Mysteries number 5. All right, now next we're going to be talking about Loki. There was a nice copy that came up for sale, a 6.5. White pages went for $6,600. I had it going for $5,000. I think I gave it a little bit of a bump for the white pages on my estimate too, and it still beat that. Prior record was 9,600 though, so it is down quite a bit from that record. I mean, we've had the Loki show conclude and all that kind of stuff. We don't know if he's going to be making any more appearances in the MCU, so I can see the book trending down more, but still very strong sale for this one. If we go take a look at Journey into Mystery 85, you can see where this book really is compared to where it had been selling, because this book had gotten really hot and it has retracted quite a bit. And you can see that, like, I mean, this is how you can tell that sale was really out of line with what was expected, is that we had this downtrend and then this huge spike up. That is that sale there. This year alone, we had a sale at 4,050. So someone decided that they really wanted to pay a big premium for the white pages on that book. And I mean, look at this, like a 6.0 went for the last sale, 3,840, 5.5, 3,900. Let's see, we had in December an 8.0 go for 97.77. So yeah, big sale for this one. I mean, I would be pretty cautious around this book right now. I probably wouldn't be paying a big record like that, but again, that's just my take on it. All right. This is another one that you don't see come up for sale very often, especially in grade. I believe this is a Will Eisner cover. Let's see. Yeah. Will Eisner cover and art. This is National Comics number 21. I had this going for 2,500, went for $6,600. Now, this was not an easy one to guess what it might go for, but still just blew my numbers away. I mean, it's a World War II, like Nazi cover. I mean, so it's got some of that going for it. Will Eisner is a really famous Golden Age artist. It's got that going for it, but National Comics isn't a extremely popular run. There are a couple issues in it that are, but I was surprised by this sale. So let's take a look at National Comics. Yeah, there we go. National Comics number 21. Just get an idea where this sale lied. Now, this is why you can see how hard it was to predict the sale price for this book. So we have a 7.5 that has never sold before. We had a 5.0 that went for $173 back in 2004, and a 9.6 Edgar Church Mile High that went for $4,370. So what I did is I looked at grades around this one, other issues around it, to use their sales that had sales around that grade to try to estimate. But I mean, that's a really rough way of doing it, but it's really all you can do in these types of cases, is to just try to make an educated guess. In this case, the demand was definitely there, and there were some big bidders for that book. I can't say it's like a shock. I mean, when you look at it like that, like just given that it hasn't sold, but still very big sale for that one. All right. Now, Dr. Doom, always seeing Fantastic Four number 5 coming up for sale. We had a 4.5 go for $6,900. I had it going for 7,500, so it was 8% below my estimate. I mean, pretty much in line. This book peaked during the comic boom at $16,800. It is down well over 50% from its peak sales. The question is, with the Fantastic Four news coming out, are we going to see more spikes in this book, in Fantastic Four keys, that kind of stuff? I thought maybe we would see a strong sale for this one because of that, but we did not. So this one, I would generally continue to be cautious around Fantastic Four number 5. It's another book that just got really, really overheated, in my opinion, during the comic boom. And so if we take a look at a 4.5, kind of get an idea with this one. And you can see prior to when I think this is probably around when Marvel got the Fantastic Four back, this book was on a much different trajectory. Then it had a big spike up and then it was flat for a while. And now it's still above that flat mark. I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of goes back to those types of trend lines. So that was around 2018 prices. So in 2018, this book was going for around $4,500. I don't know if it'd go all the way back to 4,500, but I could see it going back to like 5,500, 5,000 to 5,500 in a 4.5. So I'd be cautious with it. Again, just another book that I would, I mean, if you get a great deal on it or something, sure, go for it. But I would not be rushing out to pick up this book. This next one here, I don't remember if I threw a bid in on this one or not. No, I did not. So this is a cool book. I am not like a huge Solomon Grundy fan or anything, but this is his first appearance on the cover. Great colors on this copy. I mean, yeah, it's got this piece missing out of the corner up here, a little piece out of the corner up there, but I mean, really nice, bright colors on this copy. Off white to white pages, went for $9,000. I had it going for 11,000. Its prior record was 9,900. So this to me was kind of a pretty big underperformer. It went 18% below my estimate, especially with the fact that I could see this being a character that like James Gunn could end up using. I thought it would go for a little bit more. I think that this was a disappointing sale. I'm guessing whoever was selling this book wasn't real happy with this outcome. But it's an expensive book. I mean, I do get that, but I still think that this was an underperformer. This is a book that I kind of feel like has been trending down a little bit. It doesn't come up for sale hardly at all, but it had some really big sales a little while ago. And I feel like the last couple times I've seen it sell, it hasn't sold for as much as I thought it would. And you can see you do get these sales in the lower grades here. And we had a 2.5 for 9,600. Here's that 3.0 for 9,000. So less than the 2.5, 1.8 for 8,000. So a lot of price compression. You can see here in the 1.8 to 3.0 range. Big sale for a 4.0, 12,600. But yeah, I think that this was an underperforming sale. I would say it's probably a good buy. I still think that this is probably a $10,500 to $11,000 book. But yeah, nice looking copy and a pretty cool Golden Age key. All right, now jumping back to the Bronze Age. This was one that I thought would go high, and it did. So we had the trailer from Deadpool, and you know that we've got Wolverine as part of that and everything, and so we've got a 9.2 Hulk 181, first full appearance of Wolverine. I had it going for 8,500, went for 9,600, so beat my estimate by 13%. It is still way down from where it was during the comic boom. It had peaked at $19,800. I mean, this book was one of the ones that really went nuts. It's a solid looking 9.2. It has a little bit of like color rub or something going on up here. That might be on the inner well. It's hard to say for sure, but this is a solid looking 9.2. It's a good looking book. I don't think you can really argue with that one too much. But if we take a look at Incredible Hulk number 181, just to get an idea if this book has really fully corrected yet, or if it could still keep going down some more. So we're just talking about a 9.2 here. I mean, every grade is different, but at least in a 9.2, let's look at this one. So you can see what the general trend for this book was up until around 2018. Then it had a big spike. That was probably, again, when Marvel got the X-Men back, or, you know, rights to the X-Men or something like that. And so then if you followed that trend, it had just caught up again to where it had spiked to, because you'll see that a lot of times with these books is that when they spike, they then stay flat for a number of years while it catches back up to the trend. And then it spiked again with the comic boom, and it has been constantly trending down since then. But if we just kind of like gradually extend this out, it seems to me like this book, the $6,900 sale, was probably a really good buy. I don't know if there was something wrong with that book. Maybe we can take a look at it. So this was an off-white to white, 6,900. I mean, that seems like that was a total steal. Let's see if there's something that really jumps out. I mean, at a 9.2, you can see this one appears to have a little more spine wear than you might really want to see in a 9.2. And see if there's anything going on in the corner. I don't think that's a crease. It's hard to say for sure, but it didn't really look like one. I mean, it might just be that that was an incredible buy. So I would say at $6,900 for a 9.2, incredible buy. 9,600, paid too much. I think that this book probably somewhere in the $7,500 to $8,000 range is where that'll probably bottom out at. We'll see, we'll see where it goes, but that's my rough estimate on where I would really start considering picking that up. I wouldn't be paying $9,600 personally. I think that's an overpay right now for this book, and maybe some FOMO because of the movie and the trailer and that kind of stuff. So yeah, just remember, be careful out there. I know some people, it just doesn't matter to them and they'll pay whatever, but to me, if you're spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on comics, try, and especially with relatively common books, like Hulk 181 is an extremely common book. It's going to come up for sale all the time. You can be picky. You can wait for that right price, that kind of thing. You don't need to overpay for a book like that. I mean, now when it comes to something like All American Comic 61, that book doesn't come up for sale all that often. A few times per year, maybe 5-6 times a year. This book sells hundreds of times per year, probably thousands of times per year. So when you include things like comic shows and all that kind of stuff. So you do not need to rush out to buy that book. All right. Now we're getting into some of the big ones here. Fantastic Four, #1. First appearance of the Fantastic Four kicked off the superhero stuff for Marvel. So 2.5, I had going for 10,000, went for 10,200. I mean, basically exactly what I thought it would go for. Prior record was 21,600 during the comic boom. It has corrected a lot since then. But yeah, I mean, not really much else to say about that one. We've had the Fantastic Four news. Question is this going to end up driving up these books? Hard to say. You never really know, especially with how people aren't really loving the Marvel stuff right now. But went for basically exactly what I thought it would, 2% over my estimate, which is as close as you can really hope to get. All right, next big Silver Age key, Incredible Hulk, #1, old label, CGC 2.0, went for $12,000. I had it going for $12,500. So again, very close. Was 4% below my estimate, but about as close as you can hope to get. Prior record, 20,000. So again, another one of these books that has pulled back around 50%. It is a good looking 2.0. I mean, it's got a little bit of paper loss in the corners. It's got some spine splitting, that kind of stuff, but colors are nice. I mean, this is what you can hope for with a 2.0. Colors are nice. No big pieces missing, no big creasing or anything in the middle of the cover or anything like that. I mean, it's a solid looking book. I wouldn't be surprised if it's detached. I doubt there's graders notes. We'll see. Oh, there actually are. Wow. Okay. Because this was graded in 2002. You never know when you're going back that far. But bottom spine, small split, left center whole book stain, right center whole book stain. So a lot of staining. Top spine, medium split, whole book chip, whole book crease, whole book finger bends, whole book tanning, whole book wear. So it is actually attached. At least according to this, it is attached. Just a lot of general wear to this book. Now, the nice thing about the darker cover is it says there's a lot of staining, but you can't really see it. So still presents really, really well compared to something like Fantastic Four #1, which is that mostly white cover. And so stains really show up. All right. Another big Silver Age key. This was a solid sale. I'll say this was a strong sale for this book. Avengers #1 in an 8.0. I had it going for 15,500, went for 17,400, beat my estimate by 12%. And it's not a ton. It's not like a huge overperformance for the book, but still, I mean, this was a strong sale, 17,400 in a weekly auction sale. Prior record, I mean, during the comic boom, it went for 28,800. So it has pulled back a lot. This is a good looking book. I mean, it's an 8.0. It's going to have some wear. Got a little wear on the top edge. A little bit of spine wear, some spine ticks, all the kind of stuff that you generally expect to see in an 8.0. But I mean, overall, nice looking copy, really bright colors, deep reds on this one. That's something that you often really want to look for with this book is how deep is that red, or has it faded some in the sun? But yeah, beat my estimate by 12%. This is a book that I feel like has held up surprisingly well. Avengers #1 always seemed like a underappreciated key, and it picked up during the comic boom, and it does seem like it's held up a little better than others. I mean, like you saw, or like I said, prior record was 28,800. A lot of books have pulled back more than half, but this one still holding up a little better than that. But if we take a look at, here we go, an 8.0, not like a grade that sells all that often, but you can see where this book was leading up to the comic boom. It was kind of like an 11 to $13,000 book. So it's still pretty elevated. I wouldn't be surprised if it continued to trend down. I probably wouldn't be buying that 8.0 at that price. But let's take a look at a lower grade, like a 4.0, something that sells all the time. Still pretty elevated. And this is what I'm talking about here. Like if you look at that trend for this one and you kind of just extend that out, we're still above that trend with where that book is selling right now. I mean, this is a book that in a, what grade are we in? A 4.0 prior to the comic boom. I mean, let's take a look at 2020. This book was going for 2,500, made 2,400, $2,500. Then it is now at 3,350. So it's still pretty elevated. Something where I could see it coming down maybe just below 3,000. But that's why you always have to look at each grade. It's why I always recommend sites like GPA, Go Collect. And I know some people don't like that it only has CGC sold numbers, that kind of thing. But at least it is a useful point of reference that you can use. It's better than going in blind or just trying to use a few random eBay sales that you come across. Using as much information as you have access to is, when you're spending this type of money, to me, only makes sense. All right. Now, the biggest sale for the week. And it's not really a surprise whenever one of these comes up. And there have been quite a few lately that have been selling again. We've got Amazing Fantasy 15, a 3.5. I had it going for 29,500, went for 30,000. Prior record 45,000. This was one that this grade must not have sold as much as some of the other grades, because there are other grades during the comic boom that peaked even more. Now, colors aren't fantastic on this copy. I mean, I will say, like the Spider-Man, the reds they feel like this one was a little sun faded. The browns feel a little sun faded. It's not like the best looking 3.5. It's not a bad looking copy. I'm going to say it's like a bad looking copy, but it's got, the marble chipping, it's got some creases, and it's got the sun fading. I can totally live with the chipping and the creases. The sun fading is the type of thing that bugs me a little bit more. So that's the downside, I'd say, with this book. But this is one that I've been talking about, that it feels like this book has largely bottomed out, that it is a pretty safe time to be picking it up again. And now, again, anything can happen. I don't want people coming back if like a year from now, like it's down lower and they come after me. It's like anything can happen with these books, but based on what we've seen, it does appear that they are largely back in line with where they'd been. I mean, you can see like Amazing Fantasy 15 corrected pretty quick. A lot of books don't seem to do this. Like they took a long time or are still correcting. But I mean, this was one where here in a 5.0 peaked at 100,000, and within like 2 sales, it was almost back to its trend line. I mean, you can just look at like where this book has trended long term. And I know some people get mad, so you can't look at trends and that, but it's like, I mean, these books have been selling for decades, and you can follow these pretty long trends with them, and it's useful information to reference. And when you look at these trend lines, it's largely back in line. I mean, the last couple sales have been a little high, but it had gotten back in line in earlier to mid 2023. Then there was this one really big sale for who knows why. Maybe it was a white page copy or something, and it's trending back down a little bit again. But for the most part, from what I've seen in a lot of grades for Amazing Fantasy 15, it feels like a pretty low risk time to be picking up this book. All right, so that's all the books. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, saw some cool stuff, maybe some books that you haven't seen before. Maybe some of these are books that you've been looking at, so it gave you an idea what you might want to spend if you want to keep waiting, if it's time to buy, all that kind of stuff. If you did enjoy this video, please hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. I've got more videos over here. If you'd like to watch some of my other videos, subscription button is right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video.